Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm a Ukrainian, and I have decided I will vlog daily from my country Ukraine since the start of the awful war with Russia. And in my daily videos I try to update you on the important real life situations in my country Ukraine, and of course I'm always glad to answer your questions and to clarify some facts from our history, our culture, our background, or whatever interests you. And today I want to speak about the subject that I'm not an expert in, but I have read some things that bother me, and I will try not to go deep into various political, cultural, historical issues, but focus on the present things that definitely demonstrate the fact that I can understand. And today I want to speak about Russia, China, their relations, and the way it influences the war in Ukraine. At the very beginning of this full-scale war of Russia, we were extremely worried how will the world react. And knowing that the majority of democratic countries all over the world demonstrated opposition to the crimes that Putin did here, demonstrated the support, and now with the help of our allies, with the weapons that they give us, with the understanding and experience that they share, with the trainings that we receive, with the money that people fund all over the world, we are able to fight this war. And but for the bravery of Ukrainian people, it is also the bravery, support, understanding, and patience of many different nations, governments, ordinary people, and all of that is very important. But one of the very decisive moments was actually the attitude of China, because China is another super toxic empire that has a huge zone of influence. You know, I hate this phrase zone of influence because I don't believe such things should exist. It's not about the size of the country or its history, just like the borders. Your zone of influence are within your national borders. But China tries to influence many countries around it and to be the main Asian country due to the population, its booming economy, definitely its size, and very authoritarian regime. And of course, like authoritarian regimes, they support each other. We always know that the Northern Korea, Syria, and China, they are often seen as allies of Russia. And if Syria and Northern Korea is not very dangerous in their support, because typically they need support, and I don't think that they can, Northern Korea soldiers will definitely not come here and not change the way this war is fought. So I'm not afraid of that, but the reaction of China, their involvement in this war was extremely important, and we were observing the signs. How did they react to the start of the war? How did they speak about Putin? How did they speak about sanctions, and so on? And many of us were afraid they will demonstrate total support, because at the beginning it was very likely, but they didn't. But they also did not demonstrate that they are against it. And I think that being very shrewd, if it's possible to say so, I don't mean to offend anyone, and I know there are lots of beautiful people in China. I have lots of my students even working there as English teachers, but the regime itself, the government, is very attentive. They try to occupy many territories. They try to become very influential, but contrary to Russia, do it in a very patient way. Somewhere I have read that for the majority of leaders and countries, they want to win the war till they are, I don't know, 70, or they have 10 years to accomplish something. And Chinese philosophy is different, and victory in, let's say, 4 centuries is totally okay for them, and they are ready to wait as a nation. So they do not focus on this very quick result, and they move slowly. And that's why they are very careful, and they don't demonstrate their attitudes. They try to stay neutral with all the countries, not being neutral in reality. But I do think that this failure of Putin and his blitzkrieg is a very demonstrative fact, and China did not treat Russia as equal, I believe. it was just keeping it close and cooperating really well, but I do believe they were also seeing Putin as a minor. And now it goes without saying that all of his losses and failures lead to further disrespect and maybe to some faster moves from China. I do support people of Taiwan and hope they will be able to preserve their independence. Also, my greetings go to Hong Kong. That is a beautiful city, and I know I have some very close to me subscribers, and I do believe the city can survive and stay this very beautiful, totally different of everything part of the world. So now, why have I decided to speak about this today? Because Russia holds some military trainings that of course are not connected to war in Ukraine, and many countries that are supporters of the Putin's regime, Belarus, India to some extent, China, they have sent their soldiers to train, and many Chinese soldiers will be practicing on the territory of Russia. But as a result of this, even in Russian media, you can come across lots of messages that actually China has started this very silent occupation of Russia within the last decade. And I have decided to read more about that, though I have heard it from some other people talking that there are lots of Chinese people now living, working in Russia, and it's not that simple because, like, of course, Russia is a closed society. It's different from many European countries where the tradition of mobility is totally natural. And here they slowly move from the borders of China into far east of Russia, into Siberia. And there are also facts that in many Chinese books, these territories are already described as Chinese territories. For example, a very famous Lake Baikal is also very important in both traditional Chinese culture and in modern pop culture. There are songs about it. And it was even first mentioned in Chinese chronicles, not in Russian chronicles. So that's why many Chinese people treat Siberia, Far East, Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, Baikal territories as their own. And without military aggression, without weapons and tanks, they slowly and very persistently occupy these territories. In these cities like Vladivostok, Khabarovsk, you can come across lots of the Chinese notices everywhere. There are lots of Chinese people working, buying businesses. They work in agriculture, and many Russians say they use lots of pesticides. They don't care about nature. They also buy huge zones of forests and taiga, and they cut down these woods. Also, they have some businesses, and cryptocurrency is popular because electricity is really cheap, for example, in Vladivostok, and lots of Chinese businessmen and IT specialists use it. And well, I can tell you this is these are actually the signs that Russia is much weaker and it cannot oppose to the Chinese expansion, and they simply give up. And this was just before the start of this war. So after the failures of Putin, after the fact that the world has demonstrated that he is too weak to accomplish his plans, definitely Chinese leaders saw that. And I think this expansion will go further, faster, and will have more results for the Russians. And somehow Chinese people, they are very hardworking, and it is a huge contrast with many population on the territory of the Russian Far East. These are traditionally very depressive regions. They have problems with alcoholism. Lots of enterprises stopped, and now the Chinese rent the land for 50 years, and we all know that, like, in 50 years anything can change, or 100 years. That is a huge period for a rent, and to some extent we may say they already owe this land. They start businesses, they buy various plants and factories. Lots of Chinese tourists come and then stay there because they see some benefits of free territories, lower prices, and many cheaper working people like anyway. And I also think this is a strategy of the government. It is not just like the natural migration of people, but it is also the strategy of the Russian government. So to some extent, fighting with the West, Russia can lose to the East. And at the very beginning, after the fall of the Soviet Union, at the very beginning of the new Russia, they had ambitions to become one of the strongest Asian countries. And maybe Russian traditions of authoritarianism, hierarchy, this strong hand of a leader, decades of one president, they make them closer to Asian society. And maybe it would have been smarter for them to focus on this dominance in the Asian part of the world, but they have chosen fighting with the West. And Ukraine, that is much smaller than Russia. I hope you saw these memes, like a huge Russia and a small Ukraine that is able to oppose, that is able to stop, and that is able to lead to the collapse of Russia. Is a game changer. So China will definitely use that, but we cannot predict what will happen in the future, because the start of the full-scale war definitely led to some tremendous geopolitical changes. So I do think these trainings that Chinese soldiers pass on the territory of Russia may not be targeted in future on the Ukrainian territory, but maybe on the protection of some already Chinese Russian territories. Anyway, thank you for watching, and today I will be happy to introduce you to a very short promo of my new project, Soviet Myths Debunked. It will be a separate list, and I will be grateful for your likes, sharing, as I do believe this project is very, very useful. Let me know in comments what you will think about that video. That will be a separate video, and I will be very grateful if you help me to promote it. Thank you for buying me coffees, as they inspire my new ideas and they help me to finance them. Thank you for becoming my patrons, but most importantly, thank you for being with Ukraine, and thank you for supporting my country in this very important war. Slava Ukraini!